Cheat Code. Support Strategist. By Clouds. My Head in the Clouds, Not Coming Down. On AO3. Chapter 28. Anticipation. Hitoshi shoulders his bag and keeps his head down as he walks into the kitchen. Mei had just texted him and told him that his new support item has officially been approved, which they hadn't been worried about, considering that Midoriya was Nezu's favorite and that they'll meet him before this festival started to hand it off to him. The text hadn't mentioned anything about a meeting place, but somehow Hitoshi figured that wouldn't be a problem for his kidnappers. Honestly, the way they always seemed to know everything would have been a little creepy if he didn't trust them. Actually, scratch that, it was still creepy, but he could live with it. It took his foster siblings a few seconds to notice that he had arrived, but once the first one had seen him, their eyes widened, and they elbowed the next one in the chair, reacting until the entire room was dead silent. Only a few seconds later, Hitoshi resigned the urge to sigh, considering that any noise on his part could potentially get him in trouble, and he didn't want to deal with that when he had the sports festival later. He snuck a few pieces of bread in the toaster and ignored the stares of the other kids. It wasn't any wonder why they didn't trust him. It was hard to trust anyone after being in the system for long enough, and the fact that the adults didn't trust him didn't help. So, as annoying as it was, Hitoshi couldn't blame them. It just meant that he made his breakfast to go most mornings, so he could go out of the house as soon as possible. There was a small, frightened squeal behind him, and Hitoshi flinched slightly. He'd been hoping to avoid the adults today, but apparently he hadn't been quick enough. The foster mom at his home was a slight woman who could easily be blown away by a quick breeze. She was so terrified of everything, which meant that she hated Hitoshi. But at least she didn't hit him like one few homes he had back. Hitoshi kept his movements intently slow, not looking up from buttering his toast. Eye contact could be seen as threatening. It was best to just get out of there before the husband showed up. He didn't hit Hitoshi either, mostly, but he was the opposite of his wife in every way. Where she was tiny, he was huge. Where she was quiet, he was loud. Where she would eye Hitoshi suspiciously until he finally left the house, and she could breathe a sigh of relief, he would stand in the doorway and demand to know where he was going, and then wouldn't let him answer. Shoving a piece of toast in his mouth, Hitoshi shouldered his way past a few of the other kids, and almost at the door by the time the husband got there. He took one look at the scene and apparently decided that Hitoshi must have done something besides existing to deserve everyone's suspicion, and crossed his arms. "And just where do you think you're going, boy?" Hitoshi stomped down his frustration and kept looking at the door as he gestured to his uniform. School. He was going to school, like he had done every single morning. The only thing different was that today was a sports festival, not that he was sure these people cared enough to remember that. He could tell just by the feeling that the man was glaring at him, weighing whether he was telling the truth or not, and Hitoshi wanted to groan, or yell, or cry, or scream, or something, but he couldn't. If he did anything, it would make it worse, and it would take him even longer to get to school, and the relative safety of his kidnappers. After a long moment of the tense silence, his foster dad finally huffed, "Don't be late." Hitoshi nodded and grinned, the snap of his backpack moderately tighter as he all but ran from the house, the tension not leaving his body until he was almost at the train station. It sucked, but whatever. It would all be worth it when he became a hero. It had to be. Izuku was getting more and more nervous the closer the clock ticked to the opening of the sports festival. He and Mei had already changed into their gym uniforms, and Mei had already tied hers around her wrist by the time she did with all her convertibles in the lab, showing off her toned arms in the back tank top. Should he follow her lead? He gained some muscle in the past month or so, a lot more than he expected, but he still wasn't ripped or anything. He shifted breathlessly, and Mei rolled her eyes, briefly setting aside Shinso's support item that she'd been polishing. "Calm down, Izuku. We have a plan." "I know." Izuku groaned and slid his back down the wall so that he was sitting next to her on the floor. They were currently waiting in one of the hallways that led to where Shinso's class would be meeting, so he'd have to pass them to get there, and it had added benefit of somewhat being secluded, which Izuku was grateful for. He didn't want to deal with a lot of people right now. So, what are you worried about? May went back to polishing. We will show off our stuff, annoy the hell out of that bully-kun, and make sure Extra Credit-kun wins the festival. What else is there? It's just... Izuku huffed. I've been weak my whole life, Mei-chan. Yeah, I fought back when those villains attacked, but I wasn't actually physically there. What if I get out before the first round even really begins? Then you'll do better next year, Mei shrugged. That's the thing about progress, Izuku. It means you fail sometimes, but doesn't mean it's not worth to try. Izuku smiled tiredly. But is it worth to worry? Mei grinned. Never. Come on, Izuku. There's a reason our classmates are terrified of us. Izuku chuckled. They're not terrified. Who's not terrified? Shinso interrupted, looking as tired as ever. I thought everyone was scared of you two. Extra Credit-kun! Mei jumped to her feet, and as soon as it looked like she was hugging Shinso, but when she let go, Izuku couldn't help but laugh as she realized that she actually just dropped his weapon around his neck. She stepped back and looked at him up and down, as Shinso stared at her in surprised confusion. It doesn't really match the aesthetics of the gym uniform, but we'll just have to make your hero costume a little more... Anything else I should know before I fight the entire school? Shinso interrupted. You know, since the only thing you have on the line is extra credit, and I have, I don't know, my whole career. Aw, he's nervous, Mei-chan giggled. And hey, we care just as much as your success as our extra credit. You're gonna do great, Izuku smiled reassuringly. Why was it easier to not feel nervous when he was hyping up Shinso? Just remember to change up your fake activator equipment, make eye contact, touch people, do anything to distract them from the fact that they've already answered one of your questions. And make good use of my baby, Hatsume added. Hatsume's Industry is going to be your exclusive support company when we graduate, okay? Okay. Shinso looked slightly more relaxed, which Izuku was going to count as a win. Good luck. I don't need luck, Mei cracked. I have my babies. So, Hitoshi gave him a mischievous grin. Do you think our son is going to win? For the last time, we're not adopting Shinso, Shota sighed, and whether or not he wins is entirely up to him. But you think he's got a chance? Hitoshi grins. I think he has potential, Shota responds. But the last round is going to be the hardest because everyone will have already figured out his quirk, and info like that travels fast. Don't be such a spoilsport, Hitoshi lightly punched his arm. You're excited to see how he does. Shota snorted and changed the subject. How did you talk me into announcing again? You lost the bet, Hitoshi shrugged. Last 2 whole days without one of those weird jelly pouches and eat actual food or I get my prize. Just shut up and take your last show. If you didn't want to do this, then you shouldn't have. In my defense, I assumed your prize would be... Shota began. Oh, the kids are ready to come out, Hitoshi interrupted and turned on his mic. Hello, everybody. Are we ready to go plus ultra? Shota Aizawa, what prize did you have in mind? Okay, anyways, I really hate Shinso's, foster parents. Like, loathe them, and I cannot wait for the chapter when, he gets adopted by, 2 gay men. Honestly, I would have preferred if it was Izuku who got adopted, but I could settle and compromise. I could settle in mine. I'm good. I cannot wait for the next chapter. I'm gonna have fun. I want to know how the sports festival goes. I want to see if Izuku gets higher in the ranks than he did in the anime, if Shinso gets higher in the ranks than he did in the anime. Like, I want to see how this all develops. I crave it. I need it. I desperately need it. It's like, it's not a want, it's a need. As always, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds, have a wonderful day or night. Join our community Discord server, link is in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.